The night their world flipped, the DJ at my sister's party was spinning a mashup of Taylor Swift and a ranchera classic. The Costco sheet cake was bleeding purple flowers on the plastic tablecloth. And the bartender, my cousin's boyfriend who does events when he isn't reselling sneakers, was pouring margaritas that tasted like green Skittles dissolved in jet fuel. None of that mattered once the magician arrived. Yes, a magician. Hired by my mother because classy parties have entertainment, he looked like a preschool teacher who had taken a side quest into sleight of hand. He pulled a ribbon out of his sleeve, doves out of a kid's Dodgers cap, and then, because I paid extra, he pulled out legal envelopes. 12 of them, gold seals, official enough to turn a room full of people into a pile of blinking mannequins. "For the guest of honor," he said, handing one to my sister with a bow. Then my mother, my stepfather, an uncle who once told me Roth IRAs were liberal nonsense. The magician made a show of it. Poof, serve, until my entire family stood there holding the paperwork that would end the longest-running show in our clan. Me, the helper. The trick wasn't magic, it was logistics. In the weeks before the party, I'd formed a living trust, refinanced the duplex my name had quietly propped up for 7 years, closed every temporary joint account, revoked every authorized user credit card, canceled the invisible Amazon subscribe and save pipeline that funneled K-cups, collagen, and mystery supplements into my mother's pantry, and hired a very cheerful process server who loved a theme. The envelopes contained notices, account closures, and a single neat ledger. Color-coded, because I am that kind of petty, documenting every transfer, Venmo, Zelle, SpotMe, Cash App, and emergency bailout since the Obama administration. The room kept dancing because the DJ didn't understand what was happening, but the family stopped. My mother tried to smile the way Southern women do in movies when they say, "bless your heart," and mean, "perish." My sister clutched her stomach like she'd swallowed a bad shrimp. "What is this?" she asked, already knowing. "A disappearing act," I said. "Your favorite helper is officially on strike." And because I'm not above a flourish, I added, "This is not revenge. This is returns." The magician loved that line so much he almost curtsied. The betrayal, if you ask them, was biblical. How could I do this on her big night? Why did I make it public? Why involve a man with doves? Because this was America, and we put on a show. Because the private talk after the last 12 incidents had done exactly nothing except generate new payment plans. Because the cruelest line I had ever heard deployed against me had floated across this same rented patio an hour earlier. "He's our helper," said into a microphone like a punchline, while everyone laughed and clapped for the sibling whose party I had underwritten. Because in the funny mirror of my family, love meant automatic loans and respect meant silence. Toxic love, the kind therapists in Los Feliz make collages about. So I broke the mirror. The envelopes landed like grenades with ribbons. People read. People hissed. Someone said, "We can fix this," and another said, "Lawyer up." And my aunt, who sells essential oils with the energy of a cult recruiter, asked if she could just quick post a live about family forgiveness. The bartender poured himself a drink. The magician fed a dove a seed. And I, the former helper, made one more announcement. "I have to go," I told the room, because a lift was already idling outside. Early flight, new city, new job. Also true. New apartment with no spare keys, labeled Mom, and no guest room for emergency couch surfers, and no Wi-Fi password that had become a public utility. "We're family," my mother said finally, voice wobbling like a Jell-O salad. "Exactly," I said, because sometimes the truest answer is the least comforting one. Then I walked through a party I had paid for and past a banner I did not choose and stepped into the cool night where the conspiracy I'd begun weeks earlier, lawyers, bank managers, notarized things made of heat-embossed fear, had clicked into place. The DJ faded out the music. The doves were returned to their cartoon dimension. The world kept spinning. Theirs, however, had a brand new axis. If you want the origin story, you can't start at the party. You start in a strip mall church where a youth pastor with graphic tees explained love languages while a donation basket toured like a celebrity. You start in a two-bedroom apartment above a nail salon where my mother ran her life like a board meeting and I was the only department that turned a profit. From the moment I could sign for a package, I was signing for responsibility. At 16, I learned to translate adult emergencies into teenage solutions. A payment here, a ride there, a creative interpretation of due date over the phone with strangers who say, "Sir," a lot. By college, I was the unofficial family controller, and by 26, I was a credit score with a face. It didn't feel like betrayal then. It felt like loyalty with receipts. America rewards the kid who can handle things. The first time I was called helper, it sounded affectionate, like a nickname you give someone who can open jars. The 50th time, it sounded like a job title, capital H, no HR. When my sister's engagement happened, I was happy in the way tired people are happy, quietly and with immediate logistical concern. The wedding budget ballooned like an overfilled bouncy house. The in-laws believed rustic chic required bespoke hay. I underwrote the venue deposit so we could keep Uncle Rob from hosting the reception at his RV park. There were moments of sweetness, dance floor chaos, late-night in-and-out runs, the feeling of tribe. But sweetness has a half-life when you're burning the candle to provide it. The pattern stabilized. Problem emerges, family ricochets, I fix. Problem emerges, family ricochets, I fix. All the while, we rehearsed a script that made the cycle feel noble. We're close. We take care of our own. If one rises, all rise. It would be beautiful if it were true. Instead, it was toxic love with a Hallmark font. Somewhere between my sister's bridal shower and my stepfather's second rotator cuff surgery, I started hearing a whispery conspiracy theory in my own head. What if I'm not the hero here? What if I'm the system, the extraction machine, the reliable faucet everyone congratulates when water comes out? A therapist, because of course I tried therapy like any self-respecting American with a copay, suggested boundaries. Not a wall, she said, a fence with a gate. I bought a gate, metaphorically, and they rolled right over it with a borrowed Home Depot truck. When I tried to say no, the family's myth-making kicked in. We're a team. Money comes and goes. God will provide, by which they meant me. Refusal was framed as betrayal. Saying yes was the only way to keep my citizenship in the tribe, and I did want citizenship. I wanted Thanksgiving photos that looked like movies. I wanted the group text to explode with heart emojis when I got a promotion. I wanted my mother's voice to soften into pride instead of strategy, so I kept solving. But the ledger in my head began to glow in the dark. I noticed the silent dividends of being the helper, the way my time shrank to the size of their crises, the dates I canceled, the promotions I sideways stepped because it wasn't a good month to move apartments or change commutes or take a risk that might temporarily lower liquidity. I started to read about family systems the way other people binge detective shows, annotating patterns like a true crime fan. I watched other households like wildlife documentaries. The aunt who did everything and called it joy. The cousin who stopped doing anything and called it freedom. The sibling in every friend group who paid the bar tab because silence is cheaper than conflict. It wasn't just my family, it was an American genre. We produce a helper, the way we produce a designated driver, and then act shocked when the DD wants to dance. When my sister's birthday planning ramped up, I almost opted out. Then the microphone moment happened at an early planning meeting. My mother, practicing a toast, laughed and said into a hairbrush, "He's our helper," and everyone echoed it like a choir. I smiled because smiling is the family language for "I'm hemorrhaging." Later, lying awake in the glow of my phone, I watched a TikTok about quitting your role and an unhinged video about the Illuminati funding PTA bake sales, and for one delirious second I thought, what if I staged an intervention so theatrical they couldn't ignore it? The next morning, I called a lawyer. I called my bank manager who uses the word portfolio like a sedative. I called a magician because my cousin once hired him for a quinceañera, and he did a trick that made a credit card vanish. Imagine the symbolism. I built the plan like a heist film. Names on a corkboard, yarn, the works. I rerouted autopays, clipped the vampire cards, and set the reveal for the party. People like to talk about revenge, But this wasn't about clawing back, it was about cutting loose. A clean exit. The betrayal was ancient and mutual. They betrayed my adulthood by never acknowledging it. I betrayed the script by rewriting it. After the party, the group chat went quiet, then loud, then biblical. There were paragraphs. There were screenshots of my ledger annotated like a crime scene. There were cousins choosing sides with the urgency of a reality TV reunion. My mother called and left a message so calm it frightened me. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. Reasonable had long meant absorb the hit and smile, but I was learning a new dialect. I flew to my new city, a rented studio with a view of nothing except my own choices, and began the most American of rituals, a reinvention montage, new gym where no one knew my family lore, new barber who did not ask about holiday plans, new Sunday routine at a farmer's market where the peaches cost too much, but the air tasted like adulthood. I blocked the worst offenders and muted the rest. People said I'd feel alone. I felt space. Meanwhile, the fallout at home assembled itself. Without my credit as scaffolding, the duplex needed a refinance they couldn't land. The Amazon River dried to a trickle. Someone calculated how much the wedding had actually cost me and decided it was an attack on love. Toxic love hates math. My sister texted a list of grievances that read like a Yelp review for my soul. You humiliated me, she wrote, which was true. You made it all about you, also true, and hilariously ironic. Families stick together. I typed, erased, typed. Finally, I told her I would meet. Neutral ground, witnesses, a very public place where no one flips tables, an Applebee's. When we sat down under a flat-screen broadcasting an NFL preseason game, she cried in the messy, human way that makes you doubt every principle you've crafted. I thought you enjoyed it, she said. That landed like a small bomb. I had enjoyed parts. The competence high, the authority, the secret sense that I was central. The role had flattered me even as it devoured me. Maybe that's the true conspiracy, how easy it is to confuse usefulness with love. We talked. Not the scripted call and response of previous years, but the clumsy negotiation of two adults who barely know the rules. I apologized for the spectacle. Spectacle was the only language I trusted they'd hear. She apologized for the microphone line. I was trying to be funny, she said, and then softer. And I liked it when they laughed. Betrayal wraps itself in applause. We didn't solve it in one meal. We built a table of contents for a new book and promised to read chapter by chapter, no skipping. Some family members stayed furious, convinced I'd been radicalized by therapy TikTok and Big Boundary. Others sent cautious olive branches tied with requests. I returned just the olive branches. My mother came last. She showed up in my new city unannounced, which used to be charming and now felt like a home invasion with lipstick. We walked by a river neither of us could name, and she told me her story, not the one I grew up inside, but the one before me, the scarcity, the boys who left, the way survival calcified into entitlement without anyone choosing it. I wanted you safe, she said. I made you necessary. We stood there, two people raised by the same hurricane. Then we did the most American thing two flawed relatives can do. We negotiated terms. Holidays alternate. Money is off the table unless both sign a literal one. Crisis help is bounded by hours, not decades. No more calling me helper, not in a joke, not in a toast, not even in a whisper when you think I'm in the garage. What do I call you then? She asked, half smile. My son, I said, and we both pretended not to tear up at an answer that ordinary. Does the story end with everyone hugging around a reclaimed farmhouse table while a golden retriever sighs against our ankles? No, we are not a furniture catalog. We are a family in recovery from a myth. The party I blew up will live in certain cousins' memories as my villain origin. Fine, America loves a villain redemption arc, and if they stick around for the sequels, maybe they'll see it. As for me, I still hear the old siren sometimes, a GoFundMe link, a text that starts, hate to ask, the familiar itch to fix. I answer differently. I send the contacts of 3 people who can help that are not me. I believe in community, just not the version that runs on one volunteer's bloodstream. When people say revenge, I shrug. My life, ungilded and unperformative, is the only counterspell I need. The magician? He sent a thank you note. Best gig of the year, he wrote, and I've done bachelor parties in Vegas. I framed it, a souvenir from the night I retired from stagehand to main character. Turns out the move that flipped their world wasn't a trick at all. It was simply stepping out of mine.